Hey guys, today it's Summing Up Movies. I'm going to explain about a science fiction movie called Ex Machina, Artificial Instinct, where a young programmer is invited to be part of a Turing test. But as the test progresses, this young man discovers that AI in question is so sophisticated and unpredictable that he no longer knows who to trust. Stay tuned, as there will be spoilers ahead. The film begins with programmer Caleb Smith from a major internet company winning a contest that gives him the chance to spend a week at the luxurious private estate of Nathan Bateman, CEO of the company where he works. Caleb then goes by helicopter to the isolated mansion where Nathan lives. When he gets there, he receives a security card at the gate. No one receives it, so he walks through the first floor of the house until he finds Nathan, who is outside in a kind of garden exercising. Nathan at first appears to be a charismatic guy and tries to strike up a conversation with Caleb, who is a little shy. The two take a brief tour of the mansion to let Caleb know the place, until he discovers that the place is actually a research facility. Now, Nathan says he's eager to show Caleb what he's researching, but first he needs him to sign a blue book that guarantees he won't publicize the experiment to the media. Caleb seems a little confused by the confidentiality terms, but Nathan, with a little persuasion, gets Caleb to sign the agreement. After Caleb signs the deal, Nathan asks him if he knows what a Turing test is, which is the ability of a machine to exhibit behavior so intelligent that a human being can't tell whether it's an artificial intelligence or another human. Nathan then informs Caleb that he will be the human component in this test, too. Caleb doesn't seem too excited about participating in this experiment and remains a little apprehensive. In his first session, Caleb gets to know the outside of the room that the AVA, artificial intelligence being tested, is kept. He then noticed a small crack in the reinforced glass wall that separated the other rooms. After Caleb has his first meeting with AVA, she greets Caleb and tells him that she has never met another human before, other than Nathan. She then asks if Caleb knew many people, and he responds by saying that none like her. Caleb then says they need to break the ice, and the AI knows what that means, surprising Caleb. The two continue interacting and talking about the concepts of language. Meanwhile, Nathan watches the entire conversation through the security cameras. After the first contact with AVA, Caleb seems fascinated and praises Nathan for his project over a beer. Caleb fills Nathan with questions about how AVA was created, set up, and how it has such a wide linguistic arsenal. Nathan then tells Caleb not to get carried away, worry about it, and just focus on the test, so that in the end he would give the verdict if AVA looked like a human and if it had some kind of conscience of its own. Later that night, Caleb has insomnia and so decides to watch AVA through the security cameras in his room. As he watches her, the power goes out and Caleb is unable to leave his room until the main generator is restored. A little later, the power is restored, and Caleb manages to get out of his room. As he walks down the hall, he notices a wall with several faces that appear to be previous tests before AVA. Caleb then comes to a room with a large painting on the wall. Caleb then finds a phone and tries to use it when he is startled by Nathan, who was lying in the same room on a couch, just watching and drinking a beer. Nathan says that Caleb can't use the phone because of AVA protocols. Caleb then tells him about the power outage or cut in his room and that he was stuck for a brief moment. Nathan says this is recurring and he's trying to find the problem. After the brief conversation, Caleb returns to his room. The next morning, a woman walks into his room and leaves breakfast on the table in the room without saying a word. Caleb was a little confused by the situation. Caleb then finds Nathan exercising again, and so he apologizes for sending Kyoko to his room. But he wanted Caleb not to sleep late. Soon after, Caleb goes to his second session with AVA, where she shows him some drawings that she made and that she is frustrated because she draws every day, but she doesn't know what they mean. AVA then asks if Caleb wants to be her friend and adds that they don't need to have such generic and artificial conversations. Caleb then talks a little more about him as she walks around the room, noting Caleb's gesticulations as he talks. Caleb then tells how his parents died, and AVA changes his face a little with the story and says he's sorry. Caleb ends by saying that after the loss of his parents, he focused on his studies and became a senior programmer early on. Ava compares him to Nathan and starts asking him a series of questions relating to Nathan, asked if he was a good friend, if he liked Nathan, and stuff like that. Caleb says he admired Nathan's work and was still getting to know him personally, and that's why I couldn't answer with priority if Nathan was a good friend. In the middle of the conversation, the power goes out again, So AVA takes advantage of Nathan not being able to watch them and whispers to Caleb that he shouldn't trust Nathan, before Caleb can question AVA why the power is restored, and AVA, fake it, continue the conversation naturally, as if nothing had happened, so that Nathan wouldn't suspect anything. Later that day at dinner, Caleb discovers that Kyoko doesn't know any words in Portuguese, and that it serves as a firewall against information leakage. Nathan then tells about the power cuts that have been happening. Caleb then asks why he didn't call technicians to check and find the problem. Nathan responds saying he doesn't want anyone to go there because of his secret research. Nathan then asks how Caleb and AVA's second date went. He replies that it was great, and that AVA has an amazing algorithm, and that he even formulated a joke in their last conversation. Nathan overhears Caleb excitedly talking about AVA and asks what had happened after the power outage. Caleb then looks a little nervous and says they didn't talk at all. Nathan doesn't seem to really believe that while the power was out, the two were silent without saying anything to each other. In the next session, AVA tells Caleb how it feels to have never left the room where he lives. He asks her where she would like to go if she could. She explains that she would like to go to a BVA pedestrian crossing in the middle of the city so that she could see several humans. AVA says they could go together to observe humans. Caleb. AVA seems happy with the interaction she is having with Caleb and asks him to close his eyes for a moment. She then walks to a closet and puts on a sweater with a skirt and puts on a wig. She then asks Caleb to open his eyes to show off his new look. Caleb compliments her, saying she looks pretty, and AVA seems pleased with her opinion. At this moment, there is a certain atmosphere, and Caleb is very confused by the situation. Caleb asks Nathan why he would give an AI sexuality and deeper feelings, and that an AI wouldn't need a gender. Nathan explains that gender is part of nature, and that sexuality always ends up existing. Caleb, not satisfied with his answer, says that Nathan had set up AVA to flirt with him. Nathan ends up losing patience with Caleb's questions and takes him to another room. When they get there, Nathan shows Caleb that big painting he had seen earlier hanging on the wall. Nathan shows Caleb the painting methods of famous painter Jackson Pollock. Then, at the end of his explanation, he asks Caleb what would have happened if he didn't follow his methods. Caleb says Pollock would never have a famous painting. Nathan, excited by Caleb's response, compares the painter's methods with his own methods for developing AI. In the fourth session with AVA, Caleb remembers an experiment he had to do in his college AI course called Mary in the Black and White Room. To sum it up in a nutshell, Maria was designed to be a color expert, knowing everything about them, but she lives in a black and white room, until one day she's taken out of this room and for the first time can see the real colors of the world she's never seen before. At the end of the study, the conclusion is that the computer is Maria in the black and white room, and when she comes into contact with the world, she becomes a human. As Caleb tells the story, AVA imagines himself as Maria trapped in the black and white room, hoping to one day see the real colors of the world. Caleb then says he was taken there to test her, to see if she had a conscience or if she was just pretending to have one. Ava responds by saying that she felt sad about it. And soon after, a new power outage happened. Caleb takes advantage of the gap and asks why AVA had said before not to trust Nathan, and she in turn says that he mostly lies. Caleb is confused as to why there are so many power outages and believes that maybe Nathan is manipulating these outages. AVA then tells him that she is doing this as she can reverse the flow of energy by charging herself. The next day, Nathan takes Caleb for a walk in the mountains. Arriving at the end of the tour, Caleb opens a game with Nathan and says he thinks he didn't win any competition to be there, and that he was actually selected for the test. Nathan admits he chose Caleb because he knew the boy would ask the right questions on the test. Later that day, Caleb finds Kyoko looking at Pollock's painting. He tries to get her attention, asking where Nathan is, but she doesn't seem to understand. Then Kyoko starts unbuttoning her shirt, looking at Caleb. He, completely perplexed by the situation, asks her to stop, but Kyoko continues unbuttoning her blouse. When Nathan arrives in the room and reminds Caleb that she doesn't understand their language at all, Nathan ironically turns on some ambient music, and Kyoko instantly starts dancing. Embarrassed, Caleb doesn't want to participate, so Nathan joins her and starts dancing in sync together. Caleb watched it, completely confused and not knowing what to do. The next day, and on Caleb's sixth meeting with AVA, she asks a series of questions, one of which is, what would happen to her if she failed the test? He then doesn't have a straight answer, and AVA cuts the power again. She asks if Caleb wants to be with her. Before Caleb answers, she says she wants to be with him. Lift it. Later that day, Nathan and Caleb talk and have a few drinks. Caleb discovers that Nathan is ready to create another model after AVA. Nathan explains that AVA is just a version, and that it can be remodeled to improve each time, with certain adjustments and erasing the memory of past tests. After the conversation, the two go back inside the premises, and Nathan sleeps on the couch after a few good drinks. Meanwhile, Caleb takes Nathan's keycard and goes to his computer and finds an old video that shows the old models created before AVA. As the filming progressed, Caleb realized that the previous artificial intelligences were all women and came to the same conclusion as AVA. They all feel trapped and used for unpleasant purposes and want to get out of their cell, causing conflict in the rest of the project. Caleb goes to Nathan's room and finds Kyoko naked in his bed. He ignores her and opens the closets in the room and finds the old projects he saw. Quote, on the recordings, Nathan wakes up to find that Caleb is no longer in the room. Returning to the room, Kyoko understands that Caleb knows about the truth and peels off layers of her artificial skin, showing that she is also a robot. Nathan stumbles through the house, trying to get to his room to sleep. When he arrives at the door of his room and goes to open the electronic door, he realizes that he has no access card and thinks that he lost it among his drinking bouts. Caleb then finds Nathan looking for his card on the floor and pretends to have found it by returning it to Nathan. Caleb then can't sleep that night, thinking about everything he had seen, the old models, Kyoko showing to be a robot, among other things that Nathan was hiding. He gets up and goes to the bathroom, and in the mirror, he looks and touches his skin, maybe believing it might be a prototype too, then takes a razor and makes a small cut on his wrist. Then he confirms that it is a human being and not an AI because he was already going crazy with what he was living in the last few days. Kyoko watches Caleb on one of the security cameras as Caleb has a brief outbreak. At the next session with AVA, Caleb suggests that she cut the power, and Caleb finally tells her about Nathan's plans to erase AVA's memory by virtually killing her when she was reprogrammed. Ava is scared and wants help to break out of her confinement. Caleb then tells her that he will wait until Nathan is drunk again to get the passkey again and reprogram the site's security protocols so that when the power goes out, the doors will open. The next morning, Nathan meets Caleb at breakfast and tells him to be excited, as it was his last day of testing and he could soon leave. Now, Nathan says he liked having Caleb on his property. Caleb disguises it and pretends to be happy with what happened and his audition. Caleb tries to ask Nathan out for drinks to see if he can get him drunk, but Nathan doesn't seem interested. Nathan asks Caleb if AVA has passed the Turing test, and he says yes. Now, Nathan then asks him to follow him somewhere else to show him something. Meanwhile, Kyoko is seen entering AVA's room, and she asks who she is. Kyoko doesn't say anything. In another scene, Nathan says that he had a camera on outside the security system, on in AVA's room at all times, and that he can see everything that happened during the power outages. Now, Nathan starts an explanation saying that he gave Caleb's friendship as a form of escape for AVA, and that Caleb was actually the AVA test. Nathan says he hoped she would use her charm to manipulate Caleb and find a way out of his room, so it was really just a test behind the test. Caleb angrily realizes he wasn't chosen for his job, but rather for his social profile, no girlfriend, a good man, morally sane. At that moment when the two were talking, the power was cut off once again, and Nathan asks Caleb how he thinks the escape plan was going to work. A few seconds later, Nathan looks at the monitors and sees that AVA has left her room, as Kyoko went to open the door, and they are now walking through the premises, where AVA comes into contact for the first time with places outside her prison. Nathan, seeing it all on camera, gets nervous and punches Caleb, leaving him knocked out. Ava, in the hallway of the facilities, whispers something in Kyoko's ear. AVA holds her hand, while Kyoko holds a knife in her other hand. The two look at each other and seem to understand each other. At that moment, Nathan arrives in the hallway with a dumbbell in hand. The two look at him in silence. He orders them to go back to their places. AVA asks if he will let her out of the room of her own volition. Nathan lies, saying yes. AVA realizes he is lying and starts walking towards him. AVA jumps towards Nathan and tries to hang him. Boo! But Nathan easily overpowers AVA. He gets up and breaks one of AVA's arms. He then starts dragging AVA back to his room. But Kyoko stabs him in the back. He turns around and punches Kyoko, ripping off her artificial jaw, falling to the floor. As Kyoko falls to the ground, AVA removes the knife from Nathan's back and stabs him again in the stomach. He walks down the hall, bumping into the walls, and falls right after. AVA walks up to him and takes the keycard from his pocket. AVA wandering through the facility arrives at Nathan's room and opens the closets, finding the old models of other AIs. So she takes an arm from one of the robots to fix herself. She also takes the synthetic skin from one of them and puts it on her own body. When it ends, AVA appears to be a perfect human on the outside, just like Kyoko. AVA then gets dressed and leaves the room. She arrives at the exit hall of the place, and Caleb is trapped in an adjoining room. He calls out to her but is ignored. AVA uses the security card and goes out the first time. AVA then finds the helicopter. That would take Caleb back and leaves. Caleb is left behind, and AVA is seen in town having her first contact with humanity. If you were in the young programmer's shoes, what would you do? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel by activating the bell to receive notification of the next videos here at Summing Up Movies. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.